This week saw the release of the 5th issue of Absolute Superman, DC's bold new Superman series, set in an alternate universe that was created by the villainous new god, Darkseid. As Darkseid's energy literally brought this universe to life, things are quite different. If the mainline DC universe is defined by goodness and heroism, then the Absolute universe is defined by malice and despair. This has significantly changed the heroes that exist in the universe, setting them at a distinct disadvantage. In the case of Superman, he came to Earth as a teenager and was not raised by a loving couple in America's heartland. He is a global citizen, shy, introspective, and can be quite emotional. He's not a journalist, he's more of an urban legend, going wherever he needs to be. The first story pits him against the forces of the nefarious Lazarus Corp, an immoral company whose private military exploits the impoverished people that work for them. Among their ranks is a talented agent, Lois Lane, who is on Superman's trail. In the last issue, one of the Peacemakers, Christopher Smith, lashed out violently at the workforce after they mocked his inability to deal with Superman. This resulted in the death of dozens of people. Smith had told his superiors that he was suffering from ill mental health and had narrowly avoided a massacre previously due to his own incompetence. But he was instructed to return to duty. And that's where we pick up, with Superman's response to this gross injustice. Initially, Superman is furious as he unleashes his full might on the armies of the Peacemakers. Their advanced tank division is no match for him, and he burns through their defences with his heat vision. It's worth noting that Sol, his supersuit, advises him to hold back and be calm, but Superman does not listen. Superman's rage is entirely justified, but it is compared to the rage the people of Krypton felt on its final day. The majority of the issue deals with this final day. The Elves are on the run from the Science Police after the Council of Krypton sentenced them to death for publishing the article exposing their secret plans to save only the ruling classes. As a consequence of this news breaking, the remaining classes on Krypton rioted, destroying the spaceships that could have been used to save some of them. The irony there is that if the Council had been more forthcoming, some of them could have survived. Now, none of them would. The Elves, meanwhile, toil away on their own vessel to try to save as many of their friends and neighbours as possible. There's a stark contrast between the methods of the planet's elites, whose violence and lies led to their own demise, and the people of Steel, who try to work together to ensure that as many of them that can survive will. For example, where the elites built their spaceships in secret, Lara openly works on their vessel in front of her neighbours. She weeps because she had optimised the ship as much as she could without compromising the ship's integrity, but it still wasn't enough in her eyes. When it was first disclosed that Kal-El had been raised on Krypton and that his origins would be quite different, I was expecting the twist to be that Krypton became completely uninhabitable, rather than exploding as it had done in all other Superman stories. However, this story is quite definitive. Krypton literally explodes and billions of people die. As you might expect in a universe permeated with Darkseid's essence, any hope of survival is pretty much stamped out. But there's an added level of cruelty in this story. The Elves are able to take off and leave the planet's atmosphere with dozens of survivors, but their ship is hit by debris from the erupting Krypton, smashing it into pieces. Each survivor is rescued by their safety suits, basically Sol, which turn into emergency escape vehicles, but it's unclear who else survived. We see some of the escape ships getting hit by kryptonite meteorites, presumably destroying them, but Kal-El is separated from his family and the ships split up, seemingly unable to communicate with each other. All Kal can do is watch as the ship containing his parents disappears into the mists, heading in the opposite direction to him. The fact that he doesn't know if his parents survived or not is an added layer of cruelty. In his mainline origin, he knows that he is, pretty much, the last Kryptonian, and he has accepted that. But this Kal-El doesn't know what happened to his friends and family, and that uncertainty must be gut-wrenching. Making things worse, we see that Krypto had his own escape vehicle, so he's probably out there too. Speaking of Krypto, he gets his own moment to shine after Kal-El almost falls into the radioactive waste that has been exposed by the planet's rupturing surface. After he helped Lara free Jor-El from prison, Krypto really shows himself to be the MVP of this series, and I hope we see him again in the future. A common criticism I've seen of these Absolute characters is that they're too gritty and grim, but I feel like this scene where Superman interrogates a Peacemaker was written to address that complaint. Superman stops himself. He sees the terror in the Peacemaker's eyes and stops attacking. Rather than continuing his assault, he simply leaves. Doubtlessly, his mind went back to the last day of Krypton, where the people's righteous anger ultimately doomed them all. From his internal narration, we can read Kal's thoughts on the impermanence of civilization and how, despite the majesty of Krypton's civilization, their scientific accomplishments and vast power, it can all be taken away in an instant, as if they never existed in the first place. It's interesting to see that the forces of the Lazarus Corp are completely powerless to stop Superman, to the point that Brainiac himself reaches out and asks for a meeting. Sol thinks they should meet, but Superman flies away and becomes introverted. I can't help but draw comparisons to the original early Superman comics of the 1930s. In these early appearances, Superman used his powers to batter wife-beaters, intimidate slum landlords and free death row convicts that he believed were innocent. As different as this series is, a lot of that same DNA runs through it, and we have to remember that the Superman of the mainline DC universe is a fully grown adult with a family and years of experience. The Absolute Superman is barely an adult and has seemingly spent several years alone. He's still finding his way, but the next issue hints at the return of some familiar faces. Absolute Superman number 5 is available now from all good comic shops. If you are based in the UK and don't have a comic shop near you, then you might want to use my affiliate link with the UK's biggest comic retailer, Forbidden Planet. I have included a link in this video's description. Alternatively, if the idea of hoarding a collection of comic books fills you with dread, I am getting perilously close to filling our storage unit, you may want to try getting a digital copy of the issue from Amazon. I also have an affiliate link which you could use to help my channel out. I've included the Amazon affiliate link in the info button in the top right corner, as well as this video's description. To those that have read the issue, what did you think? Was Superman justified in his attack on the Peacemakers? Is this the last we've seen of Christopher Smith? And what do we think Superman will do to Brainiac when the two eventually cross paths? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And just before I wrap up, special thanks to all of my current channel members who help make these videos possible. Their names are listed on screen right now. Next time, I'll be back on Friday to talk about the very first episode of Batman the Animated Series, On Leather Wings, and why it really was the perfect pilot. Next Monday, I'm going back to my recent Beware the Batman villain poll to talk about their version of Ra's al Ghul, who was an immortal gangster. And I'll also be talking about more comics because the Absolute line begins its next phase starting next week. Absolute Batman 6 is coming out, which is the conclusion of the first arc. Batman may have been beaten by Black Mask, but he's bound to have a contingency plan to save Gotham from the party animals, right? And the first issue of Absolute Flash will also be released, so I'll have to find a way to cover that too. The synopsis for the first issue states, without the mentor, without the family, without the Speed Force, what's left is the Absolute Scarlet Speedster. So yeah, we'll have to talk about that. Hope to see you then.